To create a beautiful border in Tazhib, the first thing we need to do is calculate the placement of the flowers. After deciding about the width of our border, I always start by finding the middle point of the corners and the border itself. Once I have those, I can plan where to place the flowers. I use border's width as a guide for spacing. So I measure the width of the border and then I decide the distance between two flowers, which should be around 1.5 times the border width. If the flowers are too close to each other, the design will look crowded and unbalanced. To avoid that, I prefer to use a distance of twice the border width between flowers. For example, my border is 9.4 centimeters long and 1.5 centimeter width. I choose a spacing of 3 centimeters between each flower. The extra 4 millimeters is divided evenly and added to each section to keep everything balanced and precise. For the other side, where the border is 15.4 centimeters, I keep the same spacing of 3 centimeters between flowers. And again, I divide the extra 4 millimeters evenly. All the spaces should be the same size to maintain harmony in the design. Once I've measured and marked the placement for the big flowers, I start drawing the stems with a very light pencil color. I do this carefully because I don't want to connect the stems directly to the edges of the border. That is because I want to fill the border with motifs later. Now the important point is, if you do want your stems to touch the edges of the border, then you should add half flowers where they meet the border. This keeps the design looking complete and polished. If you want to use this kind of border for an image or calligraphy, it's better to draw it on a separate piece of paper first. Once you are sure everything is in the right place and looks good, you can transfer it to the final piece. Now, if I want to add another stem, I can do it here. And I'll show you one technique, but keep in mind there are other ways to do this as well. In this method, I'm going to start at one corner and finish at the same corner. So I begin here and measure the middle of the stem again. Then I place a flower right in the middle between those two existing flowers. The stem will follow underneath the other flowers, connecting everything smoothly. I'll continue along the corners and show you how to do it step by step. Don't worry if your sketch isn't perfect. Any small mistakes will be covered later with Halkari motifs. The next step is very important because it helps you keep track of your pattern and place the motifs correctly. To avoid mixing up the stems, you should mark or put signs on the flowers of one stem. This way, you can follow the pattern properly and keep the stems separate. After that, you can continue adding other motifs like buds, leaves, and whatever you like. When working with the Halkari technique, you don't need to worry too much about the details because they won't be very obvious in the final work. Your stems can be filled with many motifs or they can be simple and less crowded, depending on the style that you want. Now, let me show you how to finalize the work. I'll demonstrate a small piece of Halkari here, but remember, this piece applies to the entire design. The most important thing to remember is to work on one motif at a time across the whole piece before moving to the next motif. This way, you won't forget any details and your final work will look much better and more consistent. I always start with the biggest flowers first, then move to the smaller flowers, followed by buds and leaves, and finally the stem. When drawing the stems, remember, the thinner the better. You can also adjust the placement of the stems a little bit when you are adding them in final step, if needed. If there is a specific part of Tazhib you'd like to learn, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to follow and subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next video.